This meeting's called to order. Father John, would you care to invocation?
Let us pray. Almighty and eternal God, we ask that you send your Spirit to be among us this night, to guide our deliberations and actions, that they may benefit this community. Lord, to bless all of those gathered in this room, to use the gifts that you have given to them to the greater good of all. This we pray in your holy and glorious name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. We'll start tonight with a Pledge of Allegiance, a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call.
Robert Carnahan.
Here.
John Foreman.
Present.
Julia Rivera is absent. Ralph Miller.
Present.
Richard Sharp.
Here.
Greg Parker.
Here.
Randall Niemeyer.
Present.
Jill Murr, Town Administrator. Here. David Austin, Town Attorney.
Present. We have a quorum. We'll start tonight with public comment on agenda items. Is there any public comment on agenda items? Any public comment? Third call for public comment. Public comment's closed. We have our consent agenda, which is the minutes of the June 5th, 2018 public meeting. Claims, all town funds, $175,855.23. Wastewater operating, $248,305.28. Water utility, $31,655.18. Stormwater, $310,617.37. 2017 RDA A and B construction, $214,990.78. Payroll for June 1st and June 14th, $274,025.89. Is there a motion to accept and waive the reading of the minutes and accept the consent agenda as listed?
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Miller.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Sharp. Questions or discussion?
A little discussion again. Our garbage bill is $67,000 some dollars. And so that's roughly another $20,000 we're saving a month if we'd have stuck with the other company. So that's a big savings, and I just wanted to lift that up again.
Thanks, Bob. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Robert Carnahan.
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes.
Ralph Miller.
Yes.
Richard Sharp.
Yes.
Greg Parker.
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Ordinances and resolutions. Item 1 is ordinance number 1294, tow release fee amendment. The first reading
I'd like to have a little discussion.
was approved June 5th, 2018. Mr. Parker, go ahead.
On this particular item. Is there any way that tow fees or tow release fees could be for emissions tests, license plates expired, could be exempt from this ordinance?
So if a person's emissions
If
sticker is up
if
to
their
date,
car is being towed because they can't get plates because of emissions, that their tow release fee is not increased, because that's not a criminal offense. Actually, they're victims of a crime or a scam, in my opinion, being perpetrated on them by the government in Lake and Porter counties only.
so you say if they flunk the emission test and are driving around with expired tags, get pulled over.
Well, you can get your plates or not, John, you still gotta go to work.
No, my point is if you usually can't get your plates, can you? If you don't have your emission
That's correct.
test passed,
And if you get pulled over, your car will get towed
because your plates are expired.
because your plates are expired.
Right, but usually they don't pull you over because your emissions are expired.
If your car gets towed because your plates are expired due to lack of being able to pass the emissions test,
Right.
I would like to see that exempted from the tow release fee. If it's for something criminal offense, drunk driving, drugs,
But the ordinance needs to
driving
be
without
modified,
insurance,
Greg?
I'm okay with increasing the fees for that, but I know I've learned more about that emissions test enough that it burns me up. And I know that there's low-income, working-class people that suffer. It's the biggest tax on poor people that I think I've ever seen in my life, is this emissions test, and no one will do anything about it. Everybody just accepts it, and I refuse to accept it anymore.
No, I'm with
Except
you.
I'd say State Senator Rick Niemeyer is trying to.
I
get it
understand that,
abolished.
but he's not getting anything done.
So
Yeah.
theoretically, though, everyone in our town could not get their car emission test and say, hey,
No.
as long as they stay in Cedar Lake, I'm not gonna get
I'm
a
talking
ticket.
about if their plates are expired because they can't pass the emissions test. It's not a criminal offense or an accident or anything
Right.
of that nature.
They'd still get a ticket, but we just wouldn't haul their car.
I'd appreciate if they wouldn't haul their car, and they're gonna anyway, and it shouldn't cost them more money to get it back.
Well, do we do that today? If you get pulled over with expired tags, do we automatically?
I'm just saying a little
tow a
thought
car?
needs to go into some of this stuff before we just increase the fees.
Well, I can say from experience, I had a driver of mine who was doing something with a car that I own for my business that he shouldn't have. And he's not with me anymore, but the car got impounded in Sauk Village. The tow release fee was $1,000
That's what they do in
for a car
Illinois.
that was worth $600.
In Cook County, Illinois,
So I
they're-
said,
Give them the
I
title.
said, take it. I
And-
sent him the title.
in Cook County, Illinois,
Is that
in
crazy?
addition to everything else, they are also car thieves. But I'm talking about in Cedar Lake, and it really is Lake and Porter County, which
Yeah.
makes no difference in this case. What's brought it to the front of my mind again is I got a guy that works for me in Gary. He doesn't make a lot of money, goes to work every day, and he's walking to work right now because he lost his car because he couldn't pass the emission test and couldn't get a plate. Me as a taxpaying citizen and what's right, that's unacceptable to me. And charging them more when their car gets towed when they already can't get a license plate because they can't get the car fixed is
Kicking
not,
when they're down, yeah.
there's no benefit to that for anybody.
And sometimes when they go to get it fixed, it's still doesn't pass, and
Well,
they have a hard time.
let's ask Chief. Chief, if a police officer in any town pulls somebody over with expired plates, do they automatically get their car towed?
No. And I think that it's open for discretion. A lot of it's based on how long is the plate been expired. So not in every instance is the car.
Like I said, for criminal type offenses, I'm good with the tow release fee amendment, but not for,
Do you want to make a motion and amend this?
that's what I'm asking. I would make a motion to amend it to make that type of amendment where if it's because of an emission
Well,
test.
we need to have the second reading first before a motion. So if we could have the second reading of ordinance 1294 by its title only, please.
Sure thing. Town of Cedar Lake, Lake County, Indiana, ordinance number 1294. An ordinance amending town code section 70.43 pertaining to a fee for the release of towed vehicles held or impounded by the police department in the town of Cedar Lake, repealing all town code section and ordinances or parts thereof in conflict herewith and all matters related thereto.
It's a second reading of ordinance 1294. Questions or discussion?
Greg, do you want to make a?
I'd like to
Amendment.
I'm making a motion that some sort of amendment be made to that exclude people who have expired plates due to failure of the emissions test.
So would that be a motion to approve the ordinance with an amendment? Or to adopt
Yes.
the ordinance with so then we would need to have another,
Amend the ordinance.
right, so then we would need to have another reading of the ordinance.
You would, it's not prepared.
Right.
Obviously, and
So there's a motion to amend the ordinance number 1294. Is that correct, Mr. Parker?
Yes.
To include the exclusion of vehicles that are towed for,
Due to
Due to-
expired license plates due to failure of an emissions test.
okay, and that's exclude them from the increase or exclude them from the fee altogether?
I think from the fee altogether would be good.
Okay, we have a motion for an amendment on the current ordinance number 1294. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilmember Carnahan. Are there questions or discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I just think it could be a slippery slope, maybe, Greg, because,
Well, John, every now and then you gotta
yeah,
Every now and then you gotta go down a slippery slope to get the attention of the powers that be, and that's more of that. This is more about that for me than anything else. The
Because
emissions test is a scam. It generates $5 million a year for a private company, and it really doesn't have anything to do with clean air anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's interesting. Do we want to put a time limit on how long you can do this? I mean, theoretically now, if you stay in Cedar Lake, you can have an expired plate all year.
You can't have an expired plate all year
Yeah,
if your car gets towed, and sooner or later it's going to get towed unless you address it,
so do
it's
we,
still gonna get
right, so
towed.
do we say
You're just not gonna get
you
the
have,
extra fee.
do you get a warning and say you have 60 days?
You're still gonna get the ticket,
You're still gonna get the ticket, John.
So you're saying
We're not
strictly not
having the-
towed?
just
Not a
don't tow
towing
it.
release
I
fee.
got you.
Chief, what's the release fee in place to cover? What sort of expenses does it cover for your department?
Processing fee by the court.
So this is part of, if a person's ticketed and towed, they then have to go to court, correct?
Unless they, plead guilty to the tickets.
But then there's still some court fees or legal fees attached to that? Okay, so if we abolished something like this, then the taxpayers would be picking that up through other means at that point.
The
Okay.
only- the one issue with regards to this, it might be helpful to have proof that they actually passed the emission.
Yeah,
You get a.
yeah,
you
that
get
they
a
went
slip.
in and,
And have that as evidence, if you will, that they in fact did.
Sure.
Versus the word out there that drive around with expired plate and say, just tell the officer that they plugged it and not have any company. capable.
Yeah.
So that might be helpful for us.
They'll get it, when they fail the emission test, they get a slip.
Yeah.
Folks, I just kind of view it like this. Nobody drives junk because they want to. It's typically because they have to. And again, especially up north, it's just another tax on poor people is all it is. And why, at some point, people have to stand up and decide that they're not going to accept these types of things anymore. We just accept it. We go along. They do what they do. And it makes bad situations worse. I understand that there has to be some guideline and that type of thing, but I think as a citizenry, we accept too many cram downs from the government, and this is one of them.
And I don't think there's anyone that sits up here that couldn't afford to get your vehicle fixed, but there are some people out there that are struggling to make ends meet from week to week.
The only concern I have, Greg, is I agree with you about the emission testing being totally ridiculous. But if we abolish these fees or reduce these fees, then we're not even covering the cost that the taxpayers are already carrying the burden of for the process.
We're going to pick up the cost of things that have to do with criminal activity.
But we're basically subsidizing if somebody has an expired tag due to
John, I think
emission testing.
Randy, I think we're subsidizing poor people already.
I get it. But what we're trying to do here, even in our budget process, and it's been pretty well publicized that we've been running a pretty tight ship here. And to basically put that back on the budget of our police department and really on the budget of public safety for the citizens. And this is what, a $15 increase in fee? Or if you abolish it, it's a $40 difference. It makes a difference in volume to the taxpayers of
We
the town.
generate all the money for the town from the citizens.
I get it.
Getting another $15 from somebody that's so has so much misfortune that they can't drive a decent vehicle to pass the emission test is not going to make or break this community.
Well, I think you're really more after not towing it. Is that correct? Because that's a $200 bill versus a 15.
If it gets towed, at least not the extra $15 to get the car back. That still isn't going to pass the emissions test.
Driving is a privilege.
Driving is a privilege, but is working a privilege too? Getting back and forth to work? No,
Absolutely.
well, maybe I'm wrong. I think-
Any other questions or discussion on the motion? There's a motion to amend the agenda. I mean, not amend the agenda, amend the ordinance. No questions or discussion? Roll call vote on that motion.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
John Foreman,
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer.
No. Motion carries 5-1. Mr. Austin, do you have clear direction on how to amend the ordinance?
I'm gonna add a couple sentences to the provision for the fee in the section that you, 70.43A. And I'll get it here as soon as possible so that folks can review it. Any
Thank you.
questions?
So no other directions needed by you to amend
No, I
that?
think you're clear.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay.
That we'll have a ordinance for consideration next meeting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Item 2 is ordinance 1295, fingerprint service fee amendment. Mr. Parker, by its title.
Town of Cedar Lake, Lake County, Indiana, ordinance number 1295. An ordinance amending Town Code Section 70.42 pertaining to miscellaneous police department fees, including the fee for fingerprint services provided by the Town Metropolitan Police Department, repealing all Town Code sections and ordinances or parts thereof in conflict herewith and all matters related thereto.
Thank you. You've heard the second reading of ordinance 1295, fingerprint service fee amendment. Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance?
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Miller,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Sharp. Questions or discussion? Roll call.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
John Foreman,
Yes.
Ralph Miller.
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Ordinance is adopted. Item 3 is ordinance 1296, police case report fee amendment. The first reading was June 5th, 2018. Second reading of ordinance 1296, Mr. Parker, by its title only.
Town of Sierra Lake, Lake County, Indiana, ordinance number 1296. An ordinance amending Town Code Section 70.40 pertaining to the miscellaneous police department fees, including fees, case police reports provided by the police department in the Town of Sierra Lake, repealing all Town Code sections and ordinances or parts thereof in conflict herewith and all matters related thereto.
Thank you. It's the second reading of ordinance 1296. Just for an explanation, this includes something that didn't exist before. Digital media, computer disc containing requested photographs is $10 per disc now, and the hard copy is still $5 per hard copy. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to approve ordinance number 796.
Is a motion to adopt, Mr. Carnahan? Is that?
Adopt.
Okay, thank you.
That's
Motion by
12
Councilmember
that's
Carnahan,
1296.
1296.
12, yeah. I'll second the motion.
seconded by Councilmember Foreman. Questions or discussion? Roll call.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
John Foreman,
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Item 4 is ordinance 1297, truck route. Mr. Parker, by its title only, please. It's the second reading.
Town of Cedar Lake, Lake County, Indiana, ordinance number 1297. An ordinance establishing truck route travel regulations in the Town of Cedar Lake, prescribing penalties for violations hereof, repealing all ordinances and town code provisions or portions thereof in conflict herewith and all matters related thereto.
And for an explanation, Town Administrator Murr.
Council, after much discussion and working on this for a while, we had received the request to establish a truck route through town to help maintain and preserve the roadways that we are improving. The truck route being established basically starts at 133rd from the east, up Morse, Lakeshore Drive, to going up Klein on the north, back around Lakeshore Drive, and 133rd Avenue up to US 41. We are working on, once adopted, communication on this would go out to businesses such as Ozinga and Smith, as well as different trucking companies. With our road construction projects, we ought to reach out to some of those companies, reach out to those that deliver stone, and get this out there, as well as maybe even have Tom reaching out to Google, because he's done that before. So part of this will be a education and working with the police department to, some of those friendly reminders and getting our signage in place.
And this is to address the trucks that are using these pass-through routes.
Pass-through routes, such
Not,
as
not meant to
Parrish,
impede local business.
Morse, not
Correct.
to impede local business in any ways. This
Okay.
is, traditionally, there'll be some form of a bill of lading, something showing where they're going. If not, those communications can be had. We had that discussion at the last meeting, and
Yep.
this is that 26,000 pounds or more of a registered gross vehicle weight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've heard the second reading of ordinance 1297 and an explanation. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Sharp,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Miller. Questions or discussion? Roll call.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Item 5 is ordinance 1298, salary ordinance amendment. Mr. Parker, by its title only, please. Explanation, Town Administrator.
Ordinance number, Town of Cedar Lake, Lake County, Indiana, ordinance number 1298. An ordinance amending town salary ordinance number 1277, establishing jobs and salaries to be paid certain offices, positions, and jobs within the town of Cedar Lake for the calendar year 2018, and repealing all ordinances or parts thereof in conflict therewith.
Thank you. You've heard the second reading of ordinance 1290, or first reading of ordinance 1298. Town Administrator.
Council, after discussions with Tim, your Director of Operations, this is to amend the Secretary Administrative rate to 1720, not to exceed 1729 per hour. As review and analysis has gone on in that department, the growth and development of the department, this position has taken on more roles and responsibilities. With the leaving of Scott, one of the superintendents, Sarah has picked up a lot more roles and responsibilities, and this would allow him to do some incremental increases within his department after review and analysis of the current workload she does. And this is in line with similar administrative duties and responsibilities of other positions within the town.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a motion by the council to approve the first reading of ordinance 1298?
I make a motion to approve ordinance 1298.
Motion by Councilmember Foreman. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilmember Parker. Questions or discussion?
We're doing it now because of the person leaving in mid-year.
Yes, mid-year. This is so we're not adding on an additional superintendent. Some of those roles and responsibilities that were done, and he has reviewed and analyzed his department and has made this request. There are funds within his budget. It's not to just change the salary and increase it dramatically overnight. It's to allow him to have some growth
And there are funds.
within that
you already
role.
said, yeah.
And
Okay.
I have discussed that with Amy, and there are funds available
Okay.
within the budget
Okay.
for that.
And Tim recommended it.
Tim made the recommendation.
Any other questions or discussion? Roll call.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. It's unanimous. Is there a motion to suspend the rules to allow for second reading?
Motion to suspend the rules, allow second reading.
Motion by Councilmember Foreman,
Second.
second by Councilmember Sharp. Questions or discussion? Roll call.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes.
Ralph Miller.
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Second reading of ordinance 1298 by its title only, please, Mr. Parker.
Town of Cedar Lake, Lake County, Indiana, ordinance number 1298. An ordinance amending town salary ordinance number 1277, establishing jobs and salaries to be paid certain offices and positions and jobs within the town of Cedar Lake for the calendar year 2018, and repealing all other ordinances and parts thereof in conflict therewith.
Thank you. It's the second reading of ordinance 1298. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Sharp,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Miller. Questions or discussion? Roll call.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes.
Ralph Miller.
Yes.
Richard Sharp.
Yes.
Greg Parker.
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Next item is new business. Appointment, unsafe building. Town administrator.
Council, at your direction, there was direction made to appoint Councilmember Julie Rivera to the Unsafe Building Committee Department.
And that's in
Commission.
place of Greg
In place
Parker.
of Greg Parker.
So Greg's leaving?
Craig's leaving.
I didn't know that.
Well, it was a difficult decision, but it was brought to my attention that I'm doing stuff that I shouldn't be doing. I don't feel like I should be doing it, if that's what it is. You know, I believe in people's property rights, and I think they should be allowed to have their property rights. But I was accused of being a libertarian and only conducting business for my friends and family. So I'm certainly not interested in having that moniker and dealing with unsafe properties.
Your prerogative. We respect that. I'll make a motion to approve Julie Rivera, the unsafe building.
Motion by Councilmember Foreman,
I'll second it.
second by Councilmember Miller. Questions or discussion? Roll call.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes.
Ralph Miller.
Yes.
Richard Sharp.
Yes.
Greg Parker.
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Item 2 is elimination of sewer utility billing at 13621 Moore Street. Clerk Treasurer.
Mr. President, this is in regards to the property. Let's pull that, please. According to your packet, 13621 Moore Street. It has been signed off by Public Works. The date is not in here. Okay, that didn't make it on the packet, unfortunately. But it has been signed off, Mr. President, by your Public Works Department.
January 9th.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the elimination of sewer utility billing at 13621 Moore Street?
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Miller,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Sharp. Questions or discussion? Roll call.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
John Foreman,
Yes.
Ralph Miller.
Yes.
Richard Sharp.
Yes.
Greg Parker.
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Item 3 is memorandum of understanding Crown Point Community School Corp. Town Administrator.
Council, this is for a agreement with Crown Point School Corporation, particularly Douglas MacArthur Elementary School, for Keep Bob access for police and fire in emergency situations. I know Chief Colson has been working with the school corporation on this agreement. This comes unfortunately in light of all the incidents going on across the country, and is for emergency situations, so officers would be able to access the building.
Just be for MacArthur, they're not gonna go to the Crown
No,
Point
it's just,
School.
it's just for MacArthur
Okay.
at this point, correct?
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Councilmember Carnahan,
I'll second it.
seconded by Councilmember Miller. Questions or discussion? Roll call.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
John Foreman,
Yes.
Ralph Miller.
Yes.
Richard Sharp.
Yes.
Greg Parker.
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Town Council reports.
BK Bill Kewitt is head trustee of the Methodist Church, and his wife Karen Kuhn is the secretary of the building committee, and she sent me a message. They're going to have just a groundbreaking where they lift dirt up and throw it on Sunday at 12 noon, and asked if any of the council and town administrator, anybody would like to come, you're welcome.
Yeah, she actually called me today too and said, hopefully Bob will tell everybody, but if not, she'd like to have us all there. I just had one question I forgot to ask her. Do we have to go to church, Bob?
No.
That's a loaded question, Councilman.
Oh, yeah, I'm in trouble.
You could, but you don't have to.
I have a couple of reports if no one else has any. Any other council reports?
A week and a half ago, the new colonel came out to Cedar Lake, took a look at the project. You have some, you
I
wanted
was
to?
going to
Yeah,
report
no,
on
no,
it if you
no.
wanted
And
to.
I'll let Jill cover it in her report.
I received a call from a constituent in Havenwood with a question on water utility access and responsibility. We have a couple of gentlemen with Public Works here and as well as our town attorney. So he was looking for some clarification of responsibility of the water utility as it relates to from the valve. So from the,
The B box
no,
in the street.
let me pull this up. I've got it here on a text.
If you don't pay your water bill, we come and shut off.
So it says
a
the
valve,
town
right?
came to replace my water meter and could not shut the water off at the water valve by my street. My wife talked with Ryan and Ryan told us the water valve is our responsibility. I believe the responsibility starts after the water valve to the house. And just looking for clarification, is the valve at the street responsibility of the town or the
Right
homeowner?
of way in our easement, Randy?
He said it was at the street, the water valve by the street.
Then it's our responsibility.
It's our valve. That's what I think
It's
too.
within the public right of way.
If you
and-
could forward
and
that
water
to
easement.
me, I can work on that with our water utility.
It was
as
just
well.
a clarification that was needed
Mhm.
because the homeowner was just concerned that if he's responsible for stuff that's in the utility easement, then really nobody can access. If there's a break, nobody can access it.
That's right.
So,
So it's ours.
okay.
And this may be for legal. There was a fire hydrant that had an issue in Havenwood, leaked quite some time ago. Quite a lot of water washed out all the sidewalks and some of the people's driveways. Since then, the driveways have moved and cracked. They want to have a company come level the concrete. So I was sent some information, some pictures. I forwarded it to you. If you could get with legal or, I don't know. I've never seen this come up.
Sidewalk and the water line is all within our easement.
That it is, and I think the slab of their driveway out from the sidewalk to the road. So Tim has looked at it. It's kind of, well, the developer probably used sand underneath the sidewalk, so yeah, the sand washed out. And what's making it worse is now the water running down the hill to these two neighbors' houses, or three. Every time it rains, now water bubbles up in the middle of their driveway because it's all hollow underneath.
So our water line and hydrant caused residual damage to the property.
Correct.
We're going to be responsible.
Okay. She has the
We
information,
have the
and I'll get you some
information.
pictures and that sort of thing. And we'll-
Traditionally, that'll run through a tort claim process through our insurance company. And then they make the ultimate
You'll make
decision.
an insurance claim first, I presume.
Yes.
I had sent it to a couple of you just to ask for some
Mhm. advice,
and I wanted to bring it up also.
Thanks, John. One other I have is I met with a gentleman in the woods of Cedar Creek. That's a subdivision that's getting very close to being completed, and the HOA is really concerned that it's not up to town code. And two of the areas that were brought to my attention, and actually a tape measure got out, was the thickness of the sidewalks is 1 inch shy of the town standard. And in what you would traditionally call the parkway between the sidewalk and the curb, there has been, by the retention pond, clay put down with a lot of stones in it where no grass can grow, and it's also bowled out, so it's not the same level as the curb. And also in front of the area designated for a park in that neighborhood, there's no sidewalk put in, nor is the park seeded with grass. It has clay with rocks in it again and just a bunch of weeds. So it looks to me like there was a developer that may have skimped on the concrete. Also, some concrete was poured. To me, it looks improper because it's flaked so terribly bad. I've got concrete that's 50 years old at my house that has never flaked. And I guess the developer told these residents it's because they use salt.
It's true.
It's true. That part could be true.
Our salt's strong.
No, but it's in the residential driveways that were poured as part of the
Yeah.
development.
Mhm.
It's on the sidewalks. So it's not on the road. It's
Yeah, I'm with you. It
Yeah.
just depends how much centrifugal force is going. when
What I'm saying is it
salt
looks like
spots.
it's pretty poor quality work and it doesn't meet, according to our own town code, it
Do we still
doesn't
have the
meet the code.
performance bond for that?
No, from what I understand that was already,
That developer's
we-
long
Yeah.
gone.
It's a-
We
it's a
drew on
different
that,
developer.
we drew on that bond
Did,
years
did you
ago.
check
before.
some of the others in that area besides his?
I went all around that neighborhood.
Okay, so the
So I
commission
walked, yeah,
consists
it's
everywhere.
consistent.
Okay.
And also there's a storm drain on the south end of that neighborhood that has, on either side of the road, has trees growing out of it, and the storm drain is welded shut. So you can't get into it to do anything with it to maintain it. There's a lot of sediment and silt in the storm drain, and there's trees growing out of the crevices. And like I said, the drains are actually welded shut.
Make it easy
It's
for
my
public works.
understanding that there was a stormwater review of,
There's some work going on
subdivision.
in there. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but also in your Christopher Burke report tonight on Woods of Cedar Creek, some of that you just addressed on the pond is actually in here. And personnel, being Don and Tim, have been out in that subdivision. They were just out there on June 1st to inspect the revised detention basin and reviewing the as-built survey of the detention basin that has been submitted. The detention basin is to be seeded and blanketed,
Well,
and some of this other
they're putting
stuff.
blankets over clay with rocks in it,
Okay,
and that does not work. I don't know where anybody's grown grass on clay with rocks in it with seed blankets. You see it all over that subdivision where they're seeding. They're putting it right over clay
We did
with
that at
rocks.
Monastery Woods.
It's,
Same
it's,
thing.
it's not good.
And
It's
Jill,
ugly.
Jill had a meeting
says-
with the residents too.
They usually pulverize the clay and then it,
Well, it's not pulverized. You can pick the stones out of it. It's pretty pathetic.
yeah, there's been ongoing review in that subdivision between the Director of Operations and Christopher Burke, and some work going on out there.
I guess the pond itself now is working correctly. It's draining right. But like I say, the seeding in the pond is not good. The seeding in the parkway there isn't good. And you know, that sidewalk thickness was a concern for them, that when it's turned over to the HOA and it's their responsibility, that if it's not up to standard, what sort of recourse do they have if they accept it?
you are going to end up being responsible for everything within the easement or the right of way. And that would be inclusive of sidewalks, storm drain infrastructure, curbs.
The problem they're going to have right now is that if the sidewalks are brought up to the right thickness, the sidewalks are going to be higher than the driveways. So there's a dilemma here about how to check off on this stuff. It should have never passed inspection to begin with.
It apparently did though.
Yeah.
Because we keep issuing building permits out there. So that needs to be just looked at internally.
there's the ones that's drawn in blank.
Right here, off of 141st.
Oh, yeah.
So can that be looked into in a report given on that at the next meeting?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Gotcha.
Any other town council reports? Town attorney,
No reports.
clerk treasurer?
Mr. President, we have $633,697 to repay in temp loans, which should be occurring soon due to the fact that we'll be getting our spring installment. Also, the town administrator and I will be working together to plan strategy for getting together with department heads to discuss the 2019 budget. Our goal is to make sure we have ample reserves available to keep our bond ratings with the S&P consistent.
Okay. Town administrator?
As John had started to report on Thursday, June 7th, Colonel Reisinger of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Chicago District was out with David Beccaro, who we've met David Beccaro, who was at the presentation we did 2 summers ago, as a matter of fact, at Cedar Lake Ministries on the ecosystem restoration project. We were fortunate enough that Bob Gross was able to provide a boat tour of the lake for us. John, myself, Rick, Ralph, 2 others from the U.S. Army Corps, as well as the Colonel and Dave Beccaro, were able to go around the lake, and we were able to show them all of the improvements that have been done and projects that have been done to help preserve the lake and keep it from deteriorating, how we've planned, or I should say you guys have planned road projects working from the lake out To the extent that the colonel came in and sent us a thank you letter, appreciating the time we took to meet with him. It was beneficial for him to see the lake from the lakeside, all of the work we've been doing to protect and improve the ecosystem. He hopes that we can see some U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and federal movement on this project. He's hoping this year. He's pushing hard to move the project quickly, and we'll be in touch. And if we should have any questions, we can reach out to him as well. It was a great meeting and a great tour, and this is the most forward-moving
Feelings we got.
feelings we've gotten on this project in a while. It's kind of, we keep feeling like we're gonna get there, and then we just kind of stall. So our next meeting between Ahmad, myself, and Kay is June 27th, and I'm hopeful, and I would like to possibly offer to have Kay come out and maybe Ahmad at your July meeting and maybe provide an update on the project should we have something positive to bring back and where we are, if that would be of interest and direction from you.
Sounds great. We'll play it by ear and see if there's something to report on. If not, we'll move in August.
Also, Parish Avenue, yes, portions of it are closed, but milling has begun. We're getting down to that subgrade and the soils are being evaluated. Mother Nature obviously will play a little role in evaluating that subgrade there. Lincoln Plaza, I notified most of you yesterday. The binder's been put in place, so that's actually looks really, really good.
Is the road still closed?
The road's still closed. Landscaping in the islands is going to occur. Then that final coat of asphalt surface at the end of the week. We were actually hoping to do it tomorrow, but it'll be weather pending, and then hoping to have that opened up as early as next week. So right now we're about a week and a half ahead of schedule on that.
Jill, there's a comment on that and a question. One of the comments was at the last meeting, it was stated that the business owners are doing fine in that little plaza. I received a call from Mr. Kennedy, the owner of Cue Ball Electronics, and he stated that he's not on a voluntary vacation, but he couldn't afford to pay his NIPSCO bill due to the lack of traffic, so he's going by appointment only, and he's doing the renovations on his home because he needs something to do in this time. But they're just hoping the project gets done very quickly. The nail salon also sent me an email requesting remuneration from the town for lost business. So I don't think it's been as rosy as the picture that's been painted there. I know we can't pay for lost business in a situation like that, but they're very concerned about it getting done quickly because they're
That's why I'm
struggling.
glad to report that we're able to hopefully open this road up a week and a half ahead of schedule.
Also,
July 2nd
a
was the
question
date.
is, I remember when Strax first moved in there, we had an adopted truck route that had trucks entering Strax off of Parish into that, what I would call the north driveway
Mhm.
of Strax that's just to the south of the Centier ATM, driving through that back of Strax parking lot and around the back of the building. That was a designated truck route. They have been using when Broadway was open, or whatever we're going to call it. When Broadway was open, they were using Broadway to go in there all the time. And I was wondering with this new road, if we're going to post a truck route there as well, because it was approved with the development of Strax what that designated truck route was, and they don't use it, nor is it enforced.
Good point.
And the developer, through what I hear at the Plan Commission, Jack's going to have it so they can eventually go down that alleyway.
And
When he
that
gets rights.
that would be great, but if you look at when it was developed, Strax, that ingress egress at Parish Avenue
Right.
was made extra wide for trucks to be able to turn in there, and they just never use it.
Right.
They're always shortcutting through Broadway, and now we're going to have a new road there, and hopefully good traffic and good parking for the businesses there, and I think it would be good for them to just use the designated route.
We can reach out to Strax. I'm
Okay.
sure with some change in management there, some things have changed, obviously, and just reopen that line of communication.
Yeah, and it wouldn't hurt to post that little road there either. that we want to make that a very pedestrian and business-friendly plaza and give the trucks a good route to get in and out of there as well.
Who takes care of the landscaping once it's finished? Is that our responsibility?
I think it's gonna be, it'll be within our right of way.
I have one more question on Lincoln Plaza. Signage for the plaza.
Signage for the plaza was discussed at the redevelopment commission level.
Mhm.
The signage, it was agreed upon with discussions with your engineer, with Neil from Nice Engineering, to do the signage as a separate project. The more you keep adding and adding and adding, then you become to the point where it's not feasible anymore. So that was going to be the next step, was to discuss signage at the redevelopment commission level and look at the funding availability and what we're able to put up there.
So I think that's something that we need to just like not discuss, but there's got to be something done. Because it's important in any plaza like that to have some sort of identifiers of the businesses that are there.
I will be happy to bring that up to the redevelopment commission at their June meeting.
Okay, thanks.
If I can continue reporting, High Grove, July meeting, sorry. Thank you. 797. High Grove, 129th, which is right there along MacArthur Elementary, anticipates being, or I'm sorry, we anticipate it being closed to local traffic only June 25th, that for the milling and resurface and some curb work that'll be done over there. Weather pending, obviously, on that closure. There is signage already up there indicating that on or after June 25th, that'll close. That way they'll be able to start working there with that hill and everything. It's going to be interesting. One way should be open. South Shore Subdivision, Lakeshore Drive, those trenches in front of Bugaboos were filled in today, and then the rain came in, so they pulled off. They'll continue working on those trenches tomorrow. So
So they're gonna
hopefully
pave it?
we will get all the trenches filled in
Right, with pavement.
with pavement, with pavement. So
Which will
then
cut down
hopefully
on
that'll
dust.
cut down on some of that dust in the rocks and make it a little bit of a safer construction travel area. It will not be completely re-asphalted until we mill it towards the end of the project. With that being a main artery, it makes no sense to mill and resurface that first.
So that'll be
And that's all I
good
have
news to the
for right
folks
now.
at
And I've been
the
in
restaurant.
communication with Don Frey as well as TJ, who's our construction observation engineer out there.
Good.
And TJ's been doing a really good job, from what I'm told by public safety, of informing dispatch when we're going to have road closures out there.
Did we end up running a water truck there last week? It was all wet.
I asked for it.
Maybe they did, because I saw it was, somebody hosed it down.
I requested it.
Any other reports from you?
That's all I think I have right now.
Any staff reports? Written communication, Christopher Burke, Engineering.
Council, I pretty much covered most of it. The only other thing to note, and it's not necessarily in the report, but I was reminded, part of our summer day camp program is doing some of our MS4 learning and outreach with the children as part of our summer program.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to open public comment. If you have public comment, come forward, state your name and address for the record. Is there public comment? Any public comment?
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you all this evening?
Very well. How are you?
You all probably know me, Adam Swarden, here on behalf of Don Frey, owner of Bugaboos Bar and Grill. I guess for the record, he's been the one watering the street.
Oh, okay.
Keep the dust down,
Oh.
keep the patrons sitting outside. But I'm actually here on a different matter. Don has been attempting to get a building permit for his lakefront rental shed that was approved by this legislative body last September. An approval letter issued to him September 29th of last year, so he's got 1 year to full occupancy, which is coming due soon. The issue is that he apparently is not being granted or given a copy of the permit that was issued because an inspection for the concrete pad for the building that's out there was scheduled for May 7th at 8 a.m. But I guess it was determined by the building inspector that they weren't going to go out and inspect the pad. And so now he's kind of caught in a conundrum because he needs to get additional permits now to pull electric and everything else so he can get the occupancy before the deadline. and he's not able to come in here and get a copy of that permit. I understand he's made a public records request as of last week, but he's gonna wait 10 days to get a copy of that permit. I don't think that's really reasonable, and so we're worried about the time frame here. Don't understand why, if the project was approved, the site plan, the use and development standards and variance, if there's an issue with the permit or there's some administrative action being taken, what is it, so that we know what we're doing as we approach this deadline for the occupancy. So I guess we're looking for clarity as to what action, if any, is happening, why the permit isn't being provided to him. In fact, he'd have to even come in and make a public records request for that permit, and then be told he's gonna have to wait 10 days for that.
Could we have Dave answer that?
Sure. It's not that simple. We talked about this. There's a bit of complexity to this situation. Now, there was a permit applied for. There was inspections, as I understand it.
Yep.
And there was some discussion about whether that permit was valid or not. So your staff has been looking at that. They did receive the public records request that you sent us. And that was part of the review that took place last week, and that has been discussed. It's an item that is being addressed. It will be addressed as timely as can be. And we'll review this with the building commissioner. Building commissioner issues permits in this town.
Correct.
The building commissioner will have the authority to issue or not issue, or follow the approvals of the BZA, or however it all comes out in the wash. That'll be by and through the building commissioner.
The town council approved a use variance, is that correct, Mr. Austin?
They did.
And the BZA denied a developmental variance, is that correct? Okay,
Yeah.
so that's where probably some of the confusion lies too.
But some of the circumstances have changed since then, but like you said, it is what it is, and
Well, I guess my only concern is I've been indicated to my client that that permit was signed. So it's trying to figure out why it was signed, scheduled, and then no appearance. What the issue is, why there was no appearance out there for the pad that was before, that was properly scheduled and coordinated, and if there was an issue with what was going on out there based on what approvals happened, and he spent $18,000 to it. So are we going to go back and try and undo?
it was for them to get clarity. So that's exactly where it's at.
Okay, so I guess concern here is that it's June. I mean, how long is this gonna take to get clarity? Because we're dealing with another deadline in September. I mean, unless we're gonna agree that that deadline is not gonna apply.
We're working on getting clarity soon, because we realize that it's a seasonal business. He owns the land on both sides of the road, and we paved the way for him last fall, so we anticipate that to be sooner rather than later. Hopefully days and weeks, not weeks and months. I
But
think it's safe.
And you, I'm sure, understand, Adam, more than anyone, is that the council has limited jurisdiction in variances, as well as we have no jurisdiction in issuing building permits. So we have to kind of leave this in the hands of our professionals and our staff to work out these details and make sure that all due process is being considered as well through this for the business owner and the residents who had their opportunity to petition against that in the BZA and did so. And that's part of the reason the developmental variance was denied.
Sure, and I guess that's part of the reason I'm here,
Mhm.
is if there's gonna be action taken, we kind of need to know that, so we can start that process, whatever that action is. I don't want to be waiting 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then we're gonna decide that there is gonna be some administrative action on that, but then go through the appeal process.
I think by having this discussion tonight, I mean, I've driven by the place, it looks good. And I think Mr. Frey has done a great job in the community. He's been an excellent business partner. I hope that we can get this cleared up soon and get some sort of resolution. It may not be a favorable one to you or your client, or it may be, I don't know. We're gonna have to leave that stuff up to our building commissioner and our legal professional to work through that process.
Okay, the only other question, I guess, that we'll need clarity on is the September 29th notice that came after the town council meeting, which addressed both the development standards use, or development standards variance, and then also the use. It was both, and it states under there what it was approved under as far as the code. So I guess if we're gonna go back and say that the record doesn't reflect that both of those things were addressed before this legislative body, that's gonna be another issue, I guess we're gonna have to work through as to what the union is buying in September 29th.
Yeah, and that's what the staff's working on.
Because that's what was acted on in Reliance, and there's $18,000 just to spend.
And I can say that in this meeting, I remember that meeting, it was only the use variance that was on our agenda. We never had a developmental variance because we cannot consider that. Whether there was a misprint, something done clerical that is a problem, I don't know. We didn't send the letter out. So it's a matter of getting that stuff ironed out, and that's where we have to leave it up to Mr. Austin and Mr. Kubiak to work with you to make that happen.
So is the BZA then going to weigh in on this issue so that we know what their position is as it pertains to that? Or are we going to be dealing with the town council on the use first, and then I got to go back?
It's kind of, I think what, Mr. President, it's kind of in the building department's hands, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's building department and the town attorney at this point.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Third and final call for public comment. Public comment is closed. Our next town council public meeting will not be till July 17th, 2018 at 7 p.m. We are not going to have a meeting on July 3rd due to the July 4th holiday. So I hope everyone has a safe and happy holiday and come to Cedar Lake to enjoy the Summerfest. And hopefully we all see you there. Thank you very much. This meeting's adjourned. Yeah, I just saw you before the meeting, Nick.
Maybe you can help me out.